Dear friends, 2020 has been an epic year certainly, one that will go down in our history books. If you take a closer look to those history books, you will certainly find examples of decisive moments where music and power crossed paths. And by now there must be some of those examples of moments already jostling in your head. Perhaps you are thinking about the encounter between the genius of Mozart, conquered by the Freemasons, or rather between Johann Sebastian Bach, absolute fervent of the Lutheran Church, and what about the one between Russian composer Dmitry Shostakovich, manhandled like a toy by Stalin, or even the one between the Italian-French composer Jean-Baptiste Lully, who only lived to magnify French King Louis XIV. Last but not least, and perhaps the most spectacular of all, is the encounter between the incredible British talent Ethel Smyth and the Suffragette revolution in Great Britain. Yes, the list is very long of this type of encounters, but as you notice, most are examples from Europe. Yet in Africa, such encounters exist. A major one that deserves mention is a crossing between a man of power, the former president of Zaire, current DRC, President Mobutu Sese Seko Kuku Mbengu Wazabanga, and a type of music. But can you guess which one? We will find out soon. Welcome, dear friends, to a series of 3 trips to revisit the fantastic history of a music that has crossed many borders, centuries, and 3 continents, named differently and morphed into other musics in different countries many times through the years, to become today one of the greatest symbols of the history and present of Africa. So let's now head to Congo Diantotila.
African History Daily by my daddy.
Hold on tight, our Sankofa takes off in the Kongo Empire, which was 500,000 square kilometers at its prime. It then covered the current Angola, Congo-Brazzaville, DRC, Gabon, and part of the Central African Republic. So if you are one of those who once said, "Wow," when you heard about the 51 nationalities that comprised the Austro-Hungarian Empire in 1911, or the size of the Ottoman Empire around the 16th century, well, I pause here to enjoy at least a double wow deserved by the more than 700 ethnicities present in the Kongo Empire. Of the Kongo Empire, 2 critical cultural aspects were there: the music and dance, and specifically in the Bakongo ethnic group in the south, and among the Mbati, there was a dance known as Nkumba, in Kikongo language that can translate into belly button dance. My buddy, Sir Henry, Sultan of Nairobi, who is excellent in this dance, would have taught you, but he's on high demand, he's a sultan, so, well, you will have to use your imagination to visualize gyrating your waist with a dance partner. The navel is the center of the body, the connection with the mother by which we are nourished during our first moment of life. The Nkumba is therefore an intimate invitation to the dance partner to form a union to celebrate life. Life, birth, potentially the bonding of a couple, and then a household and maybe children, who knows. In short, the movement of the navel and hips express and celebrate fertilization in the broader sense of the term, and nothing erotic or sexual, at least in the Nkumba. I needed to clarify that, just to address the concerns of my Southern Africa and European friends who keep saying, "Oh, but you guys francophone are too sexual on the dance floor." No, we're not. Anyway, and of course, talking about dancing means also instruments and voices. Quite a few instruments were used in the Kongo Empire then, which I list very briefly here. The original names: Balafon, Lukombo, Nsambi, Sanza, Nyongi, Munkwaka or Nsakala, and of course the hands. However, the central instrument of Nkumba is of course the drum called Ngoma. And before you start looking for dancing partners, my friend, note that we are now entering the 17th century, where European civilizers arrived in the Kongo Empire with a gun in one hand and a Bible in the other. Shortly after that, from Luango, their boat leaves for the Americas, filled with Africans from what is now Angola, Gabon and DRC. Also in West Africa at the same time, more than 9,000 Africans were shipped every year for dozens of years from a city called Ouida in current Benin. The importance of the slaves from West Africa will be seen later in this saga. For all those captives anyway, no matter where they come from in Africa, once in the Americas, what really matters to them was survival. Survival of their intangible heritage, their cultures, since everything else was taken away from them. And forced to preserve the little they could by hiding to sing in their own language, dance, praying, as they used to do in Congo. And for those from West Africa, in the Yoruba religion called Reglas de Ochas or Reglas de Lukumi, or even Santeria by the Spanish masters. So on Sundays, they would celebrate not the saints of their master's religion, but the Yoruba saints, the Orishas. Dressed in colorful clothes, they danced to the tones of ngoma, later called congas by Spanish people, or claves and percussion today. All these nkumba sounds that came from the slave quarters, or barrackon, actually infiltrated or penetrated the cultures of the white masters, who then enjoyed them by adding Spanish and Portuguese sounds and instruments. That's how in the 19th century, the streets of Havana and Matanzas gave birth to a music and a dance called Cuba Rumba, whose varieties are largely based on the religions and cultures brought by the slaves from Congo and Dahomey empires. And it is here, in these streets of Havana, that I thank the co-writer of this episode, Miss Virginie Loembe from Brazzaville, before she disappeared in a Rumba club. My African cliché of the day is a double thank you. First, to the African captives in Cuba. Thank you for the example, for this incredible determination not to forget your culture in order to pass it on despite the harsh conditions of life. Unlike the rest of us today, myself included, who tend to happily reject our cultures to better celebrate others. And a second thank you to them, thanks to whom the French city of Paris enjoyed its first and only black mayor ever, a man called Severiano de Heredia, son of freed slaves living in Cuba. He was born in Havana and he was barely a teenager when he arrived in France. He was elected president of the City Council of Paris in 1879. Okay, do you realize that this is just 30 years after the abolition of slavery in France? 1879 was still a time when entire villages of men and women considered primitive were shipped from Africa and South America to satisfy the curiosity of civilized Europeans. Well, Severiano even became a minister in the French government in 1887. 1887, exactly a century before the election of the first black and widely celebrated MPs in Great Britain, Diane Abbott, Bernie Grant, and Paul Yao Boateng. Do those three black MPs, those Obama and those Harris, know how much they owe to that man, Severiano de Heredia? And finally, my sources were not clear if Severiano de Heredia was a good Cuba Rumba dancer. You know, that's important. So I'm challenging my friend Mark Vinet, who hosts an excellent podcast on the history of North America, to help me find out. So Mark, as a historian, I hope you are accepting my challenge, and I look forward to your future episodes. And to all of you history lovers, you can access Mark's podcast through all podcast platforms. Just search for Mark Vinet. Until then, enjoy Rumba. See you soon.